Today on Parts Hold, we are going to dive into the subject of the MPI, the multi-point inspection. We're going to go through the history of parts quoting, and we're going to end up talking about the most recent iteration of MPI and the electronic version. We're going to talk about that. Cliff is also going to participate in the first ever Parts Hold game show, and you'll be shocked at how he does it. That and much, much more coming up today on Parts Hold.
We'll be right back.
So look what I just got yesterday.
Oh, that's super fancy.
It's like see-through with the Chris Collins orange at the bottom. It's got my name on it. Huge thank you to Jen. So I got a care package yesterday with a few coffee cups and 6 bags of coffee.
Apparently, she paid attention. Were they in the office?
Yeah, so they know me.
So apparently they paid attention because it's definitely a thing.
Yeah, I enjoy my coffee.
All day.
And it's and it's like water. I just keep drinking it all day long. So
right.
They can't always figure out why if I drink too late, then I can't go to sleep at night. And it's just I can't possibly figure it out. But so she also sent me. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I will tell you there is a difference in drinking coffee out of a porcelain cup or that kind of coffee cup versus out of paper, cardboard, or styrofoam.
What do you see as a difference?
To me, it tastes different.
It's more refined, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, maybe I'm a little bit bougie, but it definitely tastes different.
Cliff, you may be a lot of words. You are not.
Bougie's not one of them.
I don't even know how you said bougie with a straight face. You are not. Yeah. You are one of the most down to earth people that I know. You are not bougie in any way, shape, or form.
If I showed you my new shoes that I bought that my wife has been making fun of me about, maybe you would think different. But anyway, that's.
Are they nice? Are they nicer than the ones I got you?
No. They're it's just a different style that she's not accustomed to me wearing.
Okay, because you know how I feel about those Cole Haan shoes that you have, right?
I'm still wearing them. Here we are.
They're snazzy. 2 years later.
Yeah.
Well, wasn't that? So we got those shoes when you started filming Parts Hold, right?
Yeah, we walked down to the Target. You remember we had the shirts with Top Dog on it, and that guy said, "Y'all need to get up there. They're having a riot," and we were like. What? And we realized that he thought we were security because of the way the crest is made on that.
Yeah.
Top Dog shirts.
Another thing we are not security.
Right. Well, we could, but it's probably not the security that they want for sure.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So all right. So along with these coffee mugs and this delicious coffee, she also sent me these little things that have like little sayings on them. And quotes, and I'm going to give you the quote, and you tell me who said it. I'm going to predict that you get anywhere between 0 and 1 of these correct.
Now, can I ask a question before we begin?
Yes.
Are these famous people in history?
Yes.
Okay. I'm ready.
All right. Are you ready?
Yes.
The first quote. Never forget that you are one of a kind.
I'm going to go maybe, I don't know, Abraham Lincoln. I'll throw one way out there.
No, but great guess. Okay. Buckminster Fuller said that.
Yeah, I would have definitely grabbed that.
I don't even know. I don't really know who. I don't either. I feel like I've heard the name. I couldn't tell you why he's famous. But thanks, Buckminster. All right, yes. Ready for the next one?
I am ready.
Dare to live the life you have dreamed for yourself. Go forward and make your dreams come true.
George Washington?
Okay, so I like how you kind of went back in history a little bit, and you're closer on that than you were on Buckminster Fuller, or whatever his name is.
Can I get another shot?
Yes.
Thomas Jefferson?
Okay, not correct, but closer. Ralph Waldo Emerson,
Oh,
the writer, but
yeah.
that was
Yeah.
1800s if I remember correctly. So,
Yeah, I
all
don't
right,
know.
this one I think. So you're 0 for 2. This one I believe is your best chance.
This is pressure, so much pressure.
Lots of pressure. This is definitely someone you've heard of before, and
Okay.
just everything about it. When I give you the name of the person, you're gonna be like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense." If you don't get this, because I think that I'm gonna give you a 33% chance of getting this correct.
33%. Okay, good.
Yep. Are you ready?
Yes.
Don't count the days. Make the days count.
Ali?
It was Muhammad Ali.
Muhammad Ali. Man, I just read I listened to an audiobook about Ali. Uh, uh, man, yeah, I wouldn't have. Okay. Yeah.
But doesn't it sound like something he would say?
Yeah, definitely. Maybe a more sarcastic tone for sure.
Don't count the days. Make the days count. All right.
Yeah.
Last one. You're a very special person. There's only one like you in the whole world.
Clint Eastwood.
Mr. Rogers.
Man, I'm kind of disappointed that I didn't know that.
Yeah, I feel like this is the first and last game show portion of Parts Hold that we'll ever have. Not as mysterious. Our topic today is I don't want to say controversial, but it's definitely a heated topic just in general in the parts department. Today we're going to talk about the MPI and whether or not it's the enemy. So I thought we could start this conversation off, Cliff, by tell me what it was like quoting parts prior to the MPI.
Oh man, so basic. Typically back then, you ever feel like you're getting really, really old when you say back then? But
I do, and I am.
yeah, we used to do one of two ways, and it depended on the advisor that came over. We either wrote it on the front of the RO, or we also had ROs that had boxes on the back of it. I don't know if your ROs had that, but we had boxes.
And you flipped
on the back
it,
of
right?
Yep. Yep. And so we did it like that, and I don't have the neatest handwriting. I have pretty good handwriting, but there's a lot of folks out there that don't have really good handwriting, and it got really, really sloppy, and just a terrible presentation on one side of it. You know, it didn't look good, and you know, finding the history, going back on it, like how do you even go back on that?
Yeah, so the funniest thing is I think everything that you said is true, but you know, the memory is a funny thing. How do you think most people remember it?
Oh, they remember it being super easy.
It was awesome.
It was faster. I think you probably would get some people that would say it was more accurate.
So yeah, I think that's a really good point. Is that I remember. So this is from a service advisor standpoint. I always remember that my parts quotes were a little bit of a scavenger hunt because one tech liked to flip it up, another tech liked to write it on the front of the RO, another tech liked to have a printout from the parts department of what it was, but it was not very consistent and it definitely wasn't organized. And then to your point, I can't tell you how hard it was a week later when the customer called back and said, hey, let's go ahead and do that job, order the parts. And then I had to physically go through and try and find a repair order in a pile of repair orders. And then I'd get it out and then I'd go into parts and then they'd look at the handwriting and then order the wrong part because the handwriting was sloppy.
Yeah, and then they would say that they didn't write it down. That's not my handwriting. I didn't write that.
Yeah, so low level of accountability, low level of tracking, and it wasn't as clean as it could be. Okay, so fast forward to at least with paper MPI. Now, what was the parts process like?
It was still a lot of the same thing. We either wrote it on the paper MPI somewhere, or we printed off a quote sheet. But either way, the history still wasn't there. Um, you know, you still couldn't find the history, and it still was very sloppy.
Yeah, that's great. So I agree with that. So in my store, let me know if this is what you guys did. Technician wrote, there was a little box in the MPI for like the upsells. The technician wrote all the stuff down, and then the parts counter guy did the parts quote and stapled it to the MPI. That was our process. And the one thing I would say is everybody did it like that in my shop.
We didn't do it that way. We wrote it on the back, or we tried. I did have a counter person that used to try to cram it in that box with it. They'd be like, dude, you're writing 16 bar numbers down in that bottom section. Like, we can't read that.
Yeah.
So we generally wrote it on the back.
Okay. So that's interesting. We didn't, because our MPIs were triplicate. So it was like a white copy, a pink copy, and a yellow copy. So we didn't write anything on the back because it wouldn't go through. But I always had a parts quote stapled to it. Now, here's the hard part for me on that is I'm not mechanically inclined. So occasionally, what do you think I would do as someone that's not mechanically inclined?
Rip that off? Lose that?
No, I would attach the wrong part to the wrong job.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there was that possibility of human error there too. Right?
Yeah. I didn't participate as an advisor on that side of it. I do know as a parts counter person, like, they were a mess because you couldn't figure out what the tech wanted. There's a whole thing with that.
Yeah, but I would say is what I noticed with the MPI format versus the other format is that there was actually there was a more organized quote save system. So again, in my shop, they would have that quote that was stapled to the back of the MPI, had an RO number quote attached to it. So that was the same every single time, no matter who the tech was, no matter who the parts counter person was. It was all done the same time. So I saw the value in streamlining. Okay, so I would, from my experience, and this is just from the other side of the counter, is that MPIs more organized than not having MPIs in terms of the paper, right?
Yeah.
Now, fast forward to what a lot of people have right now, whether it's Xtime or CDK or MyKarma or whatever it is. But now people have a lot of electronic inspection stuff going on. So what's that like?
Are we talking about from a parts standpoint?
Yes, just from the parts standpoint.
Yeah, I would say that it's a little bit cumbersome because for most parts departments, we've got 14 different screens they're looking in. They've got one for tires, one for collision, one for the DMS, one for the OE manufacturer, like all these screens. So with that said, it is a little bit cumbersome, but from an simplistic standpoint, it is much easier and cleaner.
So why do you think people in the parts department push back on it?
One of the things that, again, going off the cumbersome side of it, that there are multiple screens, and if you are a large wholesaler and you've got, the way it used to be, you had the OE connection, I think was the screen, and then there was one for the insurance companies, and then there was this, for the used side of it. So there's a bunch of different screens. So I think the pushback becomes and on it is it's just another thing that I've got to do. That's a little bit of an annoyance.
And then when you say large wholesaler, do you mean like 300, 350? Like how much does a large wholesaler weigh?
If I had some drums to do the ba-da-dum-bum, that would have been a perfect time for that.
Thank you, sir. Continue on.
Because I'm sure there's going to be somebody to put some hate out there that I'm against MPIs. So please listen to the entirety of this conversation before anybody jumps to a conclusion on it. But there's always a big push from the technician. Like, the technician, the experience that I've had and what I've seen is the technician comes in and says they put an MPI for, I put it
Put it through. Yep.
And then you go in there and you look at it and you're like, no, you didn't. And so then he's getting angry because maybe he didn't push a button, or there's some kind of something with the technology crossing over, because nobody experiences bad Wi-Fi. But maybe there's a connectivity standpoint, or the parts guys just get annoyed and then we don't want to deal with it anymore. And so that's another piece of it. Then not only that, but the technician puts it through, and let's just say it's an engine job with 46 parts to deal with on there and look up. It takes a little bit of time to do that. So now you have the advisor coming over and saying they need the inspection done, and it's just pressure on it it's an annoyance.
Okay, that's a pretty good perspective. I want to hear my take on that. Is the thing that's really interesting about the MPI is, for whatever reason, and it's not right and it's not fair, is parts is a scapegoat for the bottleneck. And it's really funny because a lot of these systems, what they'll do is they'll record the buckets or how much time a ticket stays in a bucket, right? So let's say that you've got a new status, you've got a ready to dispatch status, you've got a tech level, right, where tech inspecting the car, then you've got the parts, and then you've got a back to the advisor for the quote, and then approval, and then getting worked on, and then it's completed, right? And time again, I'll go into a store and they tell me that parts is the bottleneck, that they're the problem. And you know what I find almost every single time?
Yours may be a different find than mine, but normally I find that it's sitting in the advisor waiting for approval.
It is not the parts department that's the problem. The parts department, oftentimes, of all those buckets that I just mentioned, is the shortest time. And it's not close. It's usually by, a half or a quarter. It's like a quarter of the time that it might sit with an advisor or sit with a technician. And I always think that that's really fascinating. That the belief is that it falls to the parts department. So if we're really looking at this right from the parts department, is it should be a little bit of a sense of validation, because before electronic MPIs, who do you think that people blamed the bottleneck on?
Parts.
They blamed it on parts. Now you have your proof that it's not you. So I think that it's a huge opportunity for the parts department to get a little bit of vindication, because the truth is that we got a lot of talented people that can build a parts quote pretty fast. And then my favorite thing about this from a customer standpoint is that your margin for error is way slimmer. Think back to the time that we hand wrote stuff on the back of the ROs compared to what we have now. And to the point where the systems are integrated enough where actually not only do you get the part right, you understand the current inventory count and whether or not you have to order the part. And if you have to order it, how long it takes to get the part. Like, all that stuff's right at your fingertips, where that never used to be the case. It was multiple conversations. So I feel like the multi-point inspection thing for parts right now is efficiency. And if we let it be and not look at it as, oh, it's another thing, it's actually a way to do more stuff with less time. So I think overall, from the service side, it really makes a lot of sense to me. And, I can see a lot of advantages on the part side too. What do you think, Cliff? I mean, you've kind of seen it all, right? You've been through all three iterations, whether it was just what I would call the lawlessness of parts quoting, then a little more organized parts quoting, and now this is kind of like a documented parts quoting system. Like, what do you see, because you've done all three?
Yeah, I think one of the things, looking at it from a part standpoint, because I said it was cumbersome and annoying and all those things that it is early on, one of the things that I found to be the most beneficial from the part standpoint was that it kept the technician away from from the counter. They weren't standing at the counter waiting. They weren't standing at the counter wasting my counter people's time talking about the game or whatever, or how much they hate their kids or their wife or their life, whatever it was. It kept them away from there. I don't know that I would attest to it increasing my part sales, but I definitely think that there was a production thing there that I got the ability to watch. We were able to not only be able to be super efficient in quoting parts because it became more streamlined, even though there's a lot of screens that we had open, but it became more streamlined in the sense that we were able to look up the correct part more often. And then it allowed us the freedom to be able to do bin counts or neaten the warehouse or organize things to make it better streamlined so that we were more efficient. Like all those things that took place. And I know it's thrown around a lot, but the phrase organically comes to mind. But those things took place definitely. Now, can I say 100% it was of the enemy that caused us to be better there? I think so. I think it allowed us the freedoms to do that. And again, it kept everybody in check where I don't feel that there was a check and balances before. Now there was a check with the technicians. Now there was a check with the advisor. It allowed the communication with the advisor to be more open and, dare I say, a little bit honest.
That's an interesting word to use. I think that really the main beneficiary of this is the customer, because the thing that I would say about the electronic is that it when it's used correctly, and that's a big if it's used the way it's built and designed, is that it puts it in a way that the customer can digest information better, and that is really at the end of the day what it's all about. And accurately too. I think it's garbage in, garbage out. Like there's some errors in the system, but like we're minimizing errors, not adding more errors.
I remember prior to us being able to have that kind of quoting system for the multi-point inspection, I can remember us as service telling the parts people to put a freight line on there and add labor in it. And then I can remember doing it as a parts person, adding labor into the freight, and you got to put the little thing in there that freight is actually labor, like all those things. So it definitely, I would completely agree with that there's streamlined. The look of it to the customer just looks so much more presentable and clear and concise. Even if it's just paper, I would say that it looks better on a bunch of different levels.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, cool. So that kind of wraps it up. We're huge fans of anything that can organize, hold the different, if automotive repair is a wheel, right? All those things are spokes kind of providing into the wheel, and that there's a lot more positives than negatives. I'm sure we probably could do another show about the drawbacks to the system, but overall, it's holding us a little more accountable to delivering a really, really good high quality product to the customer at the end of the day. So,
yep. And it gives the opportunity to sell more. That's a big
doesn't hurt.
Too.
Yeah. So that's a big part of it. It's just using the resources that we've got. So, so I think that kind of about does it and wraps us up. And we'll see you next time on Parts Hold.
Here to fill the order.